During the winter of 1944, American soldiers faced temperatures of -20 in the Ardennes forest. Their synthetic sleeping bags failed within days. The filling clumped. The fabric soaked through. Men who trusted modern gear froze in their sleep. But the veterans who carried wool blankets survived. They wrapped themselves in the same material their fathers used in the First World War. They stayed warm when everything around them was frozen solid. The Army had tried to modernize, tried to replace wool with lighter synthetic alternatives. The Ardennes proved them wrong. After that brutal winter, the military returned to wool blankets as standard issue. The lesson was written in frozen bodies. Synthetic fails when wet. Wool does not. 80 years later, the outdoor industry has convinced you to forget this lesson. They sell you expensive bags that fail exactly like they failed in 1944. Method number 1, the burrito wrap. This was the most common technique taught to soldiers during World War II. Simple to learn, effective in any temperature, required nothing but a single wool blanket and 60 seconds of practice. You lay the blanket flat on the ground in a diamond shape, one corner pointing toward your head, one corner pointing toward your feet. You lie down diagonally across the center. You pull the bottom corner up and over your feet. Tuck it under your legs. Then you take one side corner and wrap it across your body. Tuck it beneath you on the opposite side. Finally, you wrap the remaining corner across and tuck it underneath as well. The result is a cocoon of wool that covers you completely. No gaps for cold air to enter, no loose fabric to blow away in wind. The diagonal position creates multiple layers across your core where heat loss is greatest. Soldiers called it the burrito wrap, long before burritos were common in America. The name stuck because the description was perfect. You wrapped yourself like filling inside a tortilla. The technique worked at temperatures down to 0 degrees Fahrenheit with a single blanket. Add a second blanket wrapped in the same pattern, and soldiers survived -20 and below. No zippers to jam, no synthetic fills to clump, just wool and geometry, keeping men alive through impossible winters. Method number 2, the double blanket system. Veteran soldiers in World War II carried 2 wool blankets whenever possible. Not for extra warmth alone, but for a specific layering system that multiplied their effectiveness. The technique was precise. You fold the first blanket in thirds lengthwise. You lay it on the ground as your sleeping surface. This creates 3 layers of wool between your body and the frozen earth. Ground contact steals more heat than cold air ever could. The first blanket stops that theft. You then use the second blanket for the burrito wrap on top. Now you have insulation below and above. The system creates an envelope of trapped air that your body heat warms quickly. Soldiers discovered that 2 blankets used this way outperformed 3 blankets used randomly. The layering mattered more than the total amount of material. 3 layers under, 2 layers over. This ratio came from trial and error in combat conditions. Men who put more material on top and less underneath woke up cold. The ground had stolen their heat from below. Men who followed the 3 under 2 over rule woke up warm. The mathematics of heat loss had been solved by soldiers who never studied physics. They simply paid attention to what worked and what did not. The double blanket system worked every single time. Method number 3, the buddy wrap. When temperatures dropped below -20, even wool blankets needed help. Soldiers discovered that shared body heat doubled survival rates. The buddy wrap was born from necessity and refined through experience. 2 soldiers combined their blankets into a single sleeping system. 1 blanket went on the ground, folded in thirds, just like the double blanket method. 3 layers between both bodies and the frozen earth. The remaining blankets went on top, wrapped around both soldiers together. The men slept facing each other, knees pulled up slightly, breathing toward the center of the wrap. This configuration captured exhaled breath, added moisture and warmth to the air pocket between them. Body heat from two men raised the temperature inside the wrap by 15 to 20 degrees. Soldiers who would have frozen alone survived together. The technique required trust. You slept inches from another man's face. You shared breath and warmth through the darkest hours. But survival mattered more than personal space. The buddy wrap was standard practice during the Ardennes campaign. Sergeants ordered men to pair up when temperatures dropped. Pride meant nothing if you froze to death alone. The soldiers who followed orders lived. The soldiers who refused to share body heat often did not see morning. Combat teaches lessons that peacetime never could. Method number 4. The ground sheet layer. The deadliest enemy in cold weather is not the air temperature, it is ground contact. Frozen earth pulls heat from your body 30 times faster than cold air. Soldiers during World War II learned this lesson through suffering. Men who lay directly on the ground woke up hypothermic. Men who created barriers between themselves and the earth stayed warm. The military issued rubberized canvas ground sheets for this purpose. Soldiers called them gum blankets because of their rubberized coating. The proper technique required specific layering. Ground sheet went down first. Rubberized side facing the earth to block moisture, then the folded wool blanket on top of the ground sheet, then your body on the wool, then additional blankets wrapped above. This system created complete isolation from ground temperature. The rubber blocked moisture from seeping upward. The wool trapped air and created insulation. Soldiers who followed this layering could sleep on frozen ground and wake up warm. Soldiers who skipped the ground sheet lost heat all night long. No amount of blankets on top could compensate for heat lost through direct ground contact. The ground sheet layer was considered so essential that soldiers would abandon food before they abandoned waterproof ground covering. You could survive hunger for days. You could not survive hypothermia for hours. Method number 5. The head wrap technique. Your head loses more heat than any other part of your body. The blood vessels are close to the surface. The skin is thin. The brain demands constant warm blood flow. Soldiers during World War II lost men to hypothermia who had warm bodies but exposed heads. The blanket covered everything except their faces. Heat poured out all night. By morning, their core temperature had dropped fatally. The head wrap technique solved this problem. You take a portion of the top blanket and create a hood, not wrapped tightly like a bandage, loosely draped to allow breathing while trapping warm air. The hood covers your ears completely, covers your forehead down to your eyebrows. It covers the back of your neck where major blood vessels run close to the surface. Only your nose and mouth remain exposed for breathing. The warm air you exhale gets trapped partially inside the hood, creates a microclimate of warmed air around your face. Soldiers who mastered the head wrap reported feeling 10 degrees warmer than those who left their heads exposed. The technique required practice to maintain throughout the night. Restless sleepers would lose the hood and wake up cold. Disciplined sleepers kept the hood in place and woke up warm. Small technique. Massive difference in survival rates. Method number 6. The quick escape position. Sleeping bags killed soldiers during World War II. Not from cold, but from enemy contact. A man trapped inside a zippered bag could not respond to night attacks, could not exit his bedding quickly enough to reach his weapon, could not run when artillery started falling. Wool blankets solved this problem through deliberate positioning. Soldiers slept in a specific posture that allowed instant escape. Arms stayed outside the blanket wrap. never tucked inside where warmth was greatest. This felt colder, but kept hands free to grab weapons. The blanket wrap stayed loose enough to throw aside with one motion. Not so loose that it fell open during sleep. Not so tight that it trapped the body. Legs stayed slightly bent at the knees. This position allowed explosive movement upward and forward. Soldiers practiced the escape motion until it became automatic. Wrap thrown left, body rolling right, feet underneath, standing position achieved, weapon in hand. The entire sequence took less than 3 seconds. Men who slept in this position survived night attacks. Men who burrowed deep into their blankets for maximum warmth often died before they could exit. Combat favored the prepared. The quick escape position was preparation for survival. Method number 7, the wet wool protocol. Every outdoor expert tells you to keep your gear dry. Every piece of modern equipment fails when wet. But soldiers during World War II often had no choice. Rain fell. Rivers were crossed. Sweat soaked through clothing. Keeping gear dry was impossible in combat conditions. Wool blankets handled this reality. Synthetic sleeping bags did not. The wet wool protocol was standard training for frontline soldiers. When your blanket got wet, you did not panic. You did not try to dry it before sleeping. You wrapped yourself in the wet wool exactly as you would dry wool. The blanket still retained 70% of its insulating value. Your body heat began drying the wool from the inside. The outer layers stayed damp, but the inner layers against your skin dried first. By morning, the blanket was significantly drier than when you started. Your body had done the work while you slept. Synthetic fills cannot do this. They absorb water and hold it. They lose all insulating value immediately. They stay wet until you can hang them by a fire for hours. In combat, there was no time for fire drying. There was only wet gear and the need to survive until morning. Wool made that survival possible. Method number 8, the fire proximity. Setup. Wool blankets allowed soldiers to sleep near fires without fear. This was impossible with synthetic gear. The difference was chemistry. Synthetic materials ignite at around 250 degrees Celsius. Wool ignites at 570 degrees. Synthetic melts and drips and sticks to skin. Wool chars and self-extinguishes. Soldiers position themselves close to fires for maximum warmth. Close enough that sparks occasionally landed on their blankets. Close enough that radiant heat raised the blanket temperature significantly. This proximity would destroy synthetic sleeping bags within hours. The material would develop holes, would melt in spots, would become dangerous to use. Wool blankets handled the abuse indefinitely. Small char marks appeared, but the blanket remained functional. The heat damaged nothing essential. Soldiers could position fires on both sides of their sleeping position. Could trap radiant heat from multiple sources. Could survive nights that would be fatal without fire warmth. The fire proximity setup required wool. No synthetic alternative could handle the heat exposure. This single advantage made wool blankets irreplaceable for combat conditions. Modern sleeping bags must be kept far from flames. Wool blankets become more effective the closer they get. You now know 8 World War II wool blanket techniques that outperformed every modern sleeping system. The burrito wrap that creates a perfect cocoon from a single blanket. The double blanket system with 3 layers under and 2 over. The buddy wrap that doubled survival rates in extreme cold. The ground sheet layer that stopped heat theft from frozen earth. The head wrap technique that prevented fatal heat loss. The quick escape position that saved lives during night attacks. The wet wool protocol that kept soldiers warm when dry gear was impossible. And the fire proximity setup that allowed heat sources synthetic gear could never tolerate. These techniques kept American soldiers alive through the deadliest winter combat in history. The Ardennes, the Bulge, the frozen forests, where modern equipment failed completely. 80 years of marketing has tried to convince you that synthetic sleeping bags are superior. They are lighter, they are more packable, they are more profitable for outdoor companies. But they are not better. When conditions turn desperate and your life depends on staying warm, nothing beats wool. Your great-grandfather knew this. The Army knew this. And now you know it too. The next time someone tells you modern gear is always better, remember the Ardennes. Remember the men who froze in synthetic bags. Remember the men who survived in wool.